Matapos ang naging huling laban ng Adelaide 36ers, general manager nito nagsalita na hindi pwedeng mawala si Sotto sa general season ng NBL Australia. Pero bago ang lahat ay inaanyayahan muna kitang i-click ang ating like button sa ibaba at huwag mo din kalimutan mag-subscribe bilang suporta at pakihit na din ang notification bell para updated ka sa ating mga bagong videos.
But we're going to win it with a combination of players that actually works for us from a time management point of view, a load management point of view, and getting ready for Perth Wildcats.
So no problems with DJ last night? He was purely rested on that basis?
If it had been a regular season game, yep, DJ would have played. If it had been a regular season game, Sotto would have played, Todd Withers would have played. So, there's really no drama, and touch wood, right now the players are in really good health. So that's the way we want to keep it. But it also does give us the chance to get to know guys. Cam Bairstow, who's a guy that's played 2 years in the NBA, and we picked him up very late in this off-season, and I think he's a really, really good recruit for us.
Groningen joins us, and he's the general manager of basketball. Hello, Jeffrey.
Guys, how are you? Good to be here.
Yeah, we're fantastic. Fast start in the NBL Blitz.
Yeah, look, it's nice to have a couple of wins for the team and get a bit of reward for what has been a long pre-season. Seems like a bit of Groundhog Day for us, a long pre-season during COVID-affected times. But no, they've been good. Look, you can't take a great amount of form out of this tournament because various teams, including us, are playing various combinations that you may not see, in quite the same way during the season. But you'd rather be, playing well than not well, that's for sure.
Hey, before we get into the present, if we just have a look at the last 4 or 5 seasons, Jeffrey, how would you describe the Adelaide 36ers? They made the grand final in 17-18. It was under Joey Wright. Then 5th.
Yep.
Then 7th. Joey goes. Connor Henry comes in. Now CJ Bruton. I know it's an all-new start, but what would be the way you would describe it? Has it been turbulent?
Well, I've only been part of it for the last 2 seasons, so I can probably speak to those seasons better than prior to that. I mean, obviously they had a great run of success,
yep,
as you said, that led up to a championship challenge that they quite well could have won against Melbourne United, and I watched that from a different post when I was running the Sydney Kings, but they were certainly a very good team, Adelaide, and renowned across the league as a very tough opponent. I think these things are always cyclical in sport. You see it in every sport, and you see teams that have a window open for a period of time and then perhaps it shuts and there's a rebuild and a revamp, and I don't think that the NBL is any exception to those other sports. And I think what we've had at Adelaide is the need to rebuild off a successful era, recalibrate, decide how we want the team to look. Grant Kelly and the management team, sat down and said, right, what are we trying to do over the next 5 to 10 years? What do we want to look like? Who do we want to involve? And it's not a perfect science, and we don't back away from the fact, even over the last couple of years, that you swing for the fences on some things, and sometimes the ball goes over and it's a home run, sometimes it's not. But that's sport, that's pro sport. And last year we made a move. Joey's era finished. Connor Henry came in. It wasn't a great successful season from a win-loss point of view. It did provide some huge highlights in the form of Josh Giddey. Also, Isaac Humphries was on MVP form until he was injured halfway through the year, and most people acknowledged he was ahead of Jock Landale, who's now in the NBA, as the dominant centre in the league. So we got off to a promising start, and it just didn't go anywhere after that. And again, that's the cycle of sport. It isn't a perfect science. We do feel that what we've got in CJ Bruton and the build that we've put over the off season is going to set us up for many years, and we feel very strongly about that. So that's probably a summary of the ups and downs of sport for a lot of teams, and we were included, but we are really optimistic about where we're going from here.
Yeah, very balanced and accurate answer, and it does happen to every club in nearly every sport, and we've seen it if we look at AFL here, what's happened to the Adelaide Crows after their grand final. Yours has been less dramatic than their downfall, there's no doubt about that. Last one, just to clarify, we had some texts. Sure. Is the club still paying for 3 coaches, still paying for Joey, Connor and now CJ?
No, not correct. I mean, those previous coaches, obviously, arrangements were made at that time, and okay, those things have now come to an end. So it's perhaps a little different than, say, the NBA, where you look at Brett Brown at Philadelphia, who was removed about a year and a bit ago, or about a year ago, and he's apparently still going to be paid for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and that's great for Brett. I'm very happy for Brett as a friend. But
can we get a gig like that?
Yeah, I think it's good work if you can get it. But no, our situation is different. I mean, those things are actually dealt with at the time, and we move forward. So we don't feel like that gives us any material drag or anything like that moving forward. I mean, Grant Kelly is a very smart businessman and understands pro sport like he understands the corporate world, and those things have been dealt with. So, no, look, it's a well-resourced club, but more importantly, it's a passionate club. We need to get things right and get ourselves, heading in the direction that we want to, and we're very, very happy that we are now. And in terms of CJ, CJ will be a very good coach in this league for a very long time, and we hope that the duration of that coaching career is going to be with Adelaide, but we're very sure that he's one of the rising coaches in the NBL. So it's a great period of time for us, and we look forward to the ride.
Jeff, the NBL Blitz has a novel feature whereby if you win a quarter, you get a point. If you share it, you get half a point. How novel is it?
Correct.
Can it catch on?
Yeah, well, I really like it, and I was involved in a made-for-television basketball tournament many, many years ago, and we used that format as well. And what it allows you to do is it allows you as an organising body like the NBL to ensure that very few games end up being dud games at the end, because we've all seen games where a team gets out by 20 points and then the last quarter is a bit of a yawn fest because everyone knows that the team that's down cannot win the game, and everyone knows that the team that's up is going to start basically just holding the ball up, for example. And what this does is it means that team that's losing, or even the team that's winning, may be really needing to pick up an extra point for winning that last quarter, because that could be the difference between going through to a playoff format or winning a tournament, whatever the case may be, as compared to it just being winding down to the inevitable result. So I like it. I think the fact that you can get a point for each, you do get a point for each quarter, but you can't win, for example, 3 quarters and still have more points than the team that won the game. So the team that won the game still rightly is the team that's always going to end up with the most points. But a team can be essentially a lucky loser and accumulate a number of points during that game, even if they haven't won the game. So I think it's novel. I'm all for anything that doesn't destroy the integrity of the game and is inventive and creative. And I think it ticks those boxes. It doesn't change how the game is played. All it does is add competitiveness down the stretch of games that otherwise might have lost a bit of steam.
Taking your point that during the Blitz you're going to see teams testing out the deeper end of their roster. You do play the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers next. Now,
say that again, Rudy. Say that again. Come on, say it with confidence.
Tasmanian Jack Jumpers next on Sunday in Tassie. Now, bearing in mind they're having to win over a home audience, the state of Tasmania, and they've got to work out what their best lineup is, does it become a bit more serious on Sunday?
Well, I think so, because CJ and myself and Jamie Perlman and the coaching staff watched the Jack Jumpers game last night, which followed our game against Perth, and we took a really close look, and there is no doubt they are trying to win over their fans, and they're trying to establish a culture, and Coach Scott Roth, who comes out of the Perth Wildcats system and is trying to sort of replicate that culture, is really gung-ho about them winning games. So they're going to try to beat us and beat us handily on Sunday. Now, the agenda for us is a little different. If you've looked at, the first 2 games that we've had, in neither of those games have we had any less than 4 of our starter, what we would, assume to be our starting group. We've had 4 out of that group sit and not play 1 minute in both of those 2 games. We're on a bit of a different trajectory here, even though we have won those 2 games. The aim for us right now is about getting to know what CJ's installing as a system on both ends of the floor. Also, a huge emphasis right now on getting good time management into Isaac Humphries as he comes back from that tough year last year, and getting to know the new players like Kai Sotto, the Filipino sensation. We've got, Manny Malou is new, Tad Duffelmeyer Jr. is new, Mitch McCarron is new as a leader, and even though he's a very well-known NBL player. So our agenda in this tournament is get ourselves right. It's not so scoreboard driven, but it's very much about being ready for the game against the Perth Wildcats on December the 3rd in Perth, which, as we know, that's when things get real. And so I think the Jack Jumpers game, for all of that, we're going to try to win the game. We're trying to win the game, but we're going to win it with a combination of players that actually works for us from a time management point of view, a load management point of view, and getting ready for Perth Wildcats.
So no problems with DJ last night. He was purely rested on that basis.
If it had been a regular season game, DJ would have played. If it had been a regular season game, Kai Sotto would have played, Todd Withers would have played. So, there's really no drama, and touch wood, right now the players are in really good health. So that's the way we want to keep it. But it also does give us the chance to get to know guys. Cam Bairstow, who's a guy that's played 2 years in the NBA, and we picked him up very late in this off-season, and I think he's a really, really good recruit for us. Cam needs a chance to actually be out there with a new group of guys so that the guys get to know how he plays. He's a really good player. And so to roll into Perth on the 3rd of December, having just picked up Cam Bairstow in the last month, might have been a bit of a sort of, what are we doing here if we hadn't have had these 5 games? But in these 5 games, we get a chance to really get some miles under the legs of Cam with this group. So, that's a really good example. And with DJ out last night and Kai Sotto out last night, a lot of it fell to Cam Bairstow, and a lot of it fell to Isaac Humphries, which is exactly the way we wanted it last night.
Jeff, it's always interesting when you get a new coach. We all go looking to see what it's going to bring, what he's going to stand for, what he's going to represent with his team, what his playbook is all about. CJ made it very clear when he was announced as the Sixers coach that he wanted to entertain. How do you define entertain under CJ Bruton?
So CJ Bruton is basketball royalty, the son of Cal Bruton, who was one of the original entertainers in the game. And then CJ went on and much like Gary and Gary Sr. and Gary Jr., you look at a guy coming through and say, how could that son possibly end up being as good or better? And the debate starts about, is he going to be anywhere near that player? And at the end of the career, you look at it and you say, heck, he might have surpassed his dad. That's the trajectory for those that may not be so into basketball but are into the AFL. That's the Brutons. Okay, so Cal Sr. was just a sensation as a player, but also was a huge building block in this league. He actually was one of 3 or 4 guys. I would say Gaze and Loggins were 2 others that spring to mind, and obviously there were some great players here in Adelaide, Brett Maher, and even previous to Brett, some of the players like Al Green rather, and Mark Davis that really built this sport. Cal was right at the head of that class. So getting to your point, CJ has the entertainment of basketball in his DNA. He played in an entertaining manner, but his focus was winning, and he ended up as the most successful single player, tied with David Stiff with 6 NBL championships. No other players besides those 2 have won 6. So no one could accuse him of being a one-trick pony. Yep, he's an entertainer. He's some sort of one-man show. That's not how he was, but the entertainment is in his blood. And so he is a guy that he's personable. A positive vibe comes just emanating out of him, personality-wise. He tends to attract positive people because he's a positive operator, and he has very, very few, if any, that I know about around the whole basketball fraternity that don't actually really want him to do well. Obviously, there'd be some coaches on the night when we play them that don't want him to do well. But in terms of the goodwill towards CJ Bruton, it's really there right across the board. I watched him at Tasmania last night, and there was people coming up to him in Hobart because his dad had been a player coach at Hobart, the Hobart Devils. And there's very few corners of Australian basketball that the Brutons between them haven't touched. So we have an asset in CJ, but he is also very knowledgeable. He is a rising coach in terms of his skill set. So we are, really fortunate to have him. But absolutely entertainment. He believes in it. Last night was not the most entertaining game that we put out there, but I think this year at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre, there's going to be some fun had by the players, and that will rub off on the fans, and we hope that everybody really gets behind it.
I'll tell you what, Jeffrey, you got me excited now. You brought up some of those old names that made me think of the Iceman, Darryl Pearce and Mike Mackay back in the halcyon days of the 36ers. They're our club. They represent our state. We absolutely love them. How can we give you a free kick? People, if they want to join as members, what do they do?
Just get on the 36ers.com website. You know, the first game is coming up fast, and guys, because of the COVID restrictions with various, governments across the country, the bottom line is we were originally slated to play our first home game on the 5th of December against the Brisbane Bullets, but it's still the same night. So for everybody that's got tickets, don't worry, it's exactly the same afternoon game. But it is now against the Illawarra Hawks, which is Brian Gorgin's team, and Brian, fresh off taking Australia to its first ever Olympic medal. And I have actually got the Illawarra Hawks to be, I think, the best team on paper in the league. And that's how we're starting at home. So we need every single person we can. We think that the Adelaide Entertainment Centre is going to be a very formidable place this year with the noise and atmosphere that Adelaide fans tend to gear up with during a game. And we're going to need that against Illawarra. So, tickets are available. The club is still selling memberships. We're also on track to break some membership records based on the last, many seasons. So we're really getting right back up there where the club needs to be, and that's with thanks to the tremendous goodwill of the public that have got behind us. So there's a lot of good things happening at the 36ers right now.
Jeffrey, you are always a wonderful chat. We appreciate your time. We encourage people to get onto the website of the Adelaide 36ers, and we wish you all the best against the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers. Roach, spit it out this Sunday.